Hello there, it's Cassie. Welcome back for the second time today to my YouTube channel. Today I am over on the Brutus Monroe blog, and I am going to start off with some Distress Oxide spraying onto some Strathmore 140-pound watercolor paper. I just have this in a makeshift splatter box, and I am spritzing those on there. These are fairly new to me. I had the Wilted Violet before, but I finally bit the bullet when there was a really good price, and I ended up getting the rest of the first set. I'd love to have all of them, but you know, budget. So I have the rest of the first set because I got it on a good deal, and we are just going to play with what we have. So I'm spritzing just those colors, and I am even tapping some of that on there to get some splatter, and in between each layer I am heat setting that so that I can get a clean line. The neat thing about Distress Oxides, the inks and the sprays, is that they sit on top of each other, and so they won't necessarily just blend with the color underneath, which is really nice. So you'll get this really cool, it'll sit on top of each other, and it's just a really cool look. I'm also taking just some clean water, and I'm spritzing that all over the background, and then I'm going to heat set that, and I'll wipe up in some cases some of that water and some of the excess spray. My card base is some sidewalk cardstock from Brutus Monroe, and this was cut to 4 1/4 by 11 inches and scored at 5 1/2 inches. It's going to be a side folding A2 size card. But before I assemble anything, I want to stamp on the inside. I have grabbed the string lights. This is just one of the lights from that set, and I'm going to ink that up with some different Distress Oxide inks that match the front. So this is the Wilted Violet, and this set is such a pretty set. It's got 3 different strands of lights, or 3 different sets of lights in there, and I thought this would be fun. We're getting close to Halloween, and I've already made my first Halloween card. As of last week, I had 3, and so today this is my number 2 in my Halloween cards. And so if you missed the first one, head back to my channel and check out the first one. Now I'm inking it up with cracked pistachio, and then I'll stamp that down, and then I will move on to doing the stamping on the outside. I didn't completely dry this. With the Distress Oxides, or just, in general, when you're using wet medium, you do want to make sure that you're drying things off pretty well. I didn't completely dry this, and I was okay with that because I decided to stamp this with some black soot, so that'll sit on top as well for the most part. And this is once again a Distress Oxide ink. The sprays I used are listed down below. I used Wilted Violet and cracked pistachio on there as well. But I wanted to cover this with some Icicle embossing powder. This is just a clear embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. It's an ultra fine one. It's really nice. And you can see that it did stick to some of the splatters on the side, and I am honestly okay with that. It just adds this extra texture to it, and it's kind of neat. Originally I had thought about covering that with black embossing powder, just stamping in clear and black and covering that with black, but I ended up liking this way better because it kind of gives, like I said, a little bit of texture to the background. Now I'm grabbing the bold alphabet uppercase outline stamp, and I love this because there are some of those consonants and vowels that you use a little bit more excessively. They have extras in there, so I was able to stamp out boo entirely without worrying about picking up the O and moving it again. So that is really cool. So yeah, I'm stamping out boo, just using that stamp set, stamping it out a couple times, once again using that black soot ink. And then I'll cover that with that Icicle embossing powder, once again, collecting that into a coffee filter. And then I'll hit a couple spots that I missed, and then I will heat set my boo until that is smooth and melted. And then you can kind of see, as I hold it up in the light, the texture that adds. I do decide to do a little bit of painting, and because there is some of that clear embossing powder on that background, it won't go all over the place, all where I had wanted it, but that's kind of cool. That's where the added texture is. I just grabbed some scattered straw and put that onto my glass media mat, and I'm coloring in the lights just where there isn't the embossing powder that carried over. And like I said before, because these are Distress Oxides, they will sit on top. But I decided to later on take it a step further, and you'll see that. So here I am painting the boo, and you'll see when I get to the O especially that there was a lot of the clear embossing powder carryover, and so I don't get all the paint all the way through, which is cool in my opinion. I thought that turned out pretty neat. So then I'll even splatter just a little bit of that all over my background, very, very subtly. And then I'll set that off to the side to dry a little bit. And then I'll move on to adhering this to the front of my card base after everything is dry. I love how those distress oxides interact with each other. Just a lot of fun. And so to adhere this to my card base, I decide to use some 1/8 inch score tape, simply because there was a little bit of warping because I used the distress sprays. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. And so by using this, I'll make sure that it's adhered down pretty well, because normally I would probably just use liquid glue, or if you didn't want to use your score tape, you could probably use some foam tape, and that would add extra dimension to your card, which is always fun. Who doesn't love a little dimension? So I'm just peeling off all the backing paper, and then I'll stick that down to the front of my card base. I love the subtleness of the sidewalk cardstock. So it's not obviously a stark white, but it's neat. And then for a final bit of embellishment, I do end up grabbing out those Nuvo drops, and this is the color Sour Apple, I believe. If I'm wrong, I will change that. But this is the color Sour Apple, and then I'm just sticking that all over the lights. And then I decide to take it a step further and put it all over the boo. I'm basically trying to paint it inside of my embossed lines. I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out, but I will show you at the end, because these are glow-in-the-dark Nuvo drops, which is awesome. I paint those just all inside there, and they do pick up some of the color from the background, which is kind of cool once they're dried. But yeah, that will finish off this card. So if you liked this card, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and head back to the Brutus Monroe blog if you'd like to see what we've been up to. There's always lots going on, and as always, thank you so much for stopping by.